When people think of theme parks, they often think of Disney, Universal, Six Flags, and Cedar Point. They think of Orlando and California for their great climate and year-round operations. And those are great places for theme parks. The weather is great, there's a ton of other tourist attractions in the area, and you have a slew of different chains to choose from. But there is one chain that stayed away from those hubs. One chain that chose to keep its parks in the Midwest. The Midwest with all of the culture that comes with it. This chain is Hershend. They're not as big as Six Flags or Disney or Universal, but they still have really popular and high-quality parks. I mean, they have the park named after friggin' Dolly Parton. I recently had a chance to visit their two flagship parks, Silver Dollar City in Missouri and Dollywood in Tennessee, and I noticed more than a few similarities. They have a unique setting, they have a very Western feel to them, their food is fantastic, just to name a few things. And they're not actually that far from each other. So today I decided to compare the two so that if anyone is choosing between them, they can see which one is the better Midwest escape. I'm going to be using a point system to decide the best park, but different categories will have more points than others. I don't really know how to explain it. You'll see as the video goes on. The first thing I want to talk about is, of course, the rides. This is what's going to be the main draw to both parks. Now, these parks do have a lot to offer in terms of rides, but I think the biggest draw is roller coasters. These aren't your basic Six Flags roller coasters, though, like built in a parking lot, colored piece yellow. No, these are immersive, well-themed rides that play with the terrain in a unique and creative way. The ride lineups between these two parks are actually pretty similar, so I'm just going to go head-to-head matchups and give each park a point for when they win a round. First matchup is Lightning Rod and Outlaw Run. These are the two headlining coasters and probably the two headlining rides at both of the parks, and they are two RMC wooden coasters. Lightning Rod is now a wooden hybrid because they retracked some of it with steel, but for the purpose of this video, we'll say it's wooden, so it's more of an even matchup. Now, there are pros and cons to both. In terms of layout, they're very similar. They both have rapid airtime moments that try and throw you in every which direction you can think of. They have wave turns, over banks, outer banks, all while interacting with the terrain. I'd say there's really two main differences that can make you prefer one over the other. The first is the terrain that I was talking about. Outlaw Runs is kind of through the woods, so the ride feels more out of control as you tear through the trees. Lightning Rod is built in a hill, so you drop down right behind the hill into the ride, and it feels really secluded from the rest of the park. It allows for the quad down at the end, and when you finally do crest and return to the park, it feels like a grand moment. I personally like Lightning Rod's setting better because the ride utilizes it for the 4 back-to-back drops at the end, but I can see why someone would prefer Outlaw Run's setting in the woods. It's a lot more cinematic, I will give it that. The other main difference is the inversions on Outlaw Run versus the launch on Lightning Rod. Now, this is really the biggest difference. Lightning Rod starts with a launch up the hill, while Outlaw Run ends with a double barrel roll. Now, yeah, the double barrel roll looks cooler, but Lightning Rod's launch is just better, trust me. Besides that, Outlaw Run never has a line and has a pretty cool theme, but it is very rough at points. Lightning Rod is also rough, but it's mostly been smoothened out by the retrack, but it usually has very long lines. It does, however, have a cool section of the park with the whole 60s or 50s. I actually have no idea what era this is supposed to be. I wasn't exactly alive. Overall, though, I'm going to give the point to Lightning Rod. I just think it's a better ride through and through, but it is very close. Okay, I just spent a really long time on those rides, so I'm going to move a little quicker on the next ones. Next matchup is a little less clear as to why I'm comparing them, because one is a wooden coaster and one is a spinning coaster. The answer is very simple. I don't know what else to put against these two. And this one, I'm just going to say from the get-go, Silver Dollar City wins. Time Traveler is a much more unique experience with a better terrain interaction and a cooler theme. I'm not as high on it as some people are, but it's definitely better than Thunderhead. Don't get me wrong, Thunderhead is a really good ride, but an average, maybe slightly above average GCI can't really compete with an extreme spinning coaster. Time Traveler's drop out of the station alone could beat Thunderhead. Again, Thunderhead's not bad, but even though I just shot on it for the past 30 seconds, Time Traveler is just better. The two wild coasters aren't actually that wild. They're both pretty tame for B&M loopers. And originally, I was going to give it to Wild Eagle, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that WILDFIRE is actually better. Wild Eagle is a big wing coaster, so it's a lot flashier, but when you look at it, it's not really doing that much. The first drop is pretty good, but I feel like wing coasters should kind of be obligated to do a wing over drop because they're just so much better. And there's really no near misses on this ride unless you count like these trees. Big whoop. WILDFIRE has a surprisingly good first drop, and even though the rest of the layout isn't anything crazy, it's still more intense than Wild Eagle. Like, Wild Eagle kind of just glides around and occasionally goes upside down, which I guess is the point of it being an eagle, but I think WILDFIRE is just better. It also has a setting on the hillside, which you really just can't beat. Okay, this is another weird comparison, but Mystery Mine's a weird ride. Actually, both of these are pretty weird rides. Mystery Mine is a well-themed Girthstar Eurofighter with 2 lift hills and an actual well-themed first half, and a really short outside section that's a little odd. Powder Keg's a premier launch coaster that used to be a log flume but got converted into a coaster. That's why there's 2 different tracks. It also has a switch track and an air compressed launch. So yes, these are both pretty out there. I'm gonna go with Mystery Mine just because we don't really see well-themed coasters like this that often, and that's just kind of more my cup of tea. But if you want a hyper-light coaster with a really good launch in the beginning, you'll probably like Powder Keg. Okay, so for the rest of the rides, the matchups aren't really fair. Like, yeah, I could compare Tennessee Tornado to like the Grand Expedition coaster. but that's stupid. So I'm just gonna give Dollywood a point for Tennessee Tornado and another point because they have more coasters than Silver Dollar City. I'm not gonna give a point for like Fire Chaser Express, Dragonflyer, and Big Bear when it opens because like then there would really be no shot for Silver Dollar City to recover. Also, those are all B-listers, so I don't really think they're worth a point. So with all that being said, the score is 4-2 Dollywood. There are other rides at the parks that are pretty similar. They both have thrill rides like drop towers and giant swings, and they both have family rides like carousels and train rides. So I guess I can give each park another point because it doesn't really do anything and it's a tie in other ride department. Next thing I want to talk about is location, because I think this is actually a pretty important point. Silver Dollar City is a 20-minute drive from Branson, Missouri, which is not the biggest city, but it is at least civilization. Dollywood is kind of in the hillbillies. Like, it's literally right next to the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. There is not a sign of civilization outside of this little strip of hotels and fast food restaurants. To me, this is a better setting for this type of parks because it pairs really nicely with a trip to the national park. We visited the Smoky Mountains in the morning and then went to Dollywood straight after, and while we didn't spend that much time in the national park, I can totally see how someone would do a trip to the mountains for like 2 days, then round it out with a day at Dollywood. If you want a city nearby, then Silver Dollar City will obviously be better, but Branson isn't even like that crazy. Like, it's a city by definition, but it's not like Orlando or something. So I'm gonna give this to Dollywood again, bringing the score to 6-3. I'm not gonna lie, both these parks are pretty similar in food. I'll give a point to both just because it's another tie, but I do want to stop and talk about the food quickly because it is a highlight. First of all, get the cinnamon bread from both parks. It's really good, like surprisingly good. The line gets long at Dollywood, but the Silver Dollar City line we just walked in and ate, so I guess that's a pro for Silver Dollar City. Also go to the candy shops and get something. We got peanut brittle at both parks and finished the bags before we even got to the car. As for actual food, it's pretty great across the board. I would say try something you don't usually see at theme parks because there is a lot of different foods here. Like at Dollywood, we got a steak skillet. What other theme parks offer skillets? We played it safer at Silver Dollar City with corn dogs, which I greatly regret, but the corn dogs weren't like bad. At least they had like the fries with the ridges, so I guess that's a plus. At least you're not paying $20 for like cardboard pizza. Overall, the food at both of these parks is a plus and definitely a high point. So similar to food, these are also pretty similar to one another. But I'm actually gonna give this one to Silver Dollar City here because I think they have more variety in their shows. They have some comedy shows that Dollywood just doesn't have. And I mean, it makes sense that Dollywood theme park sponsored by a country singer would have more music center shows, but I still think it's better to have a mix of both. Another thing that kind of is show related, but kind of not really, that I wanted to talk about was the cave tour. I'm gonna give Silver Dollar City another point for this because this is a huge pro. I didn't go on the cave tour because right before we were about to go in it closed for bad weather. I have no idea what the correlation between that is, but I don't know, don't ask me. But for those of you that are thinking of doing it, it's a tour that takes you 300 feet down into the cave that the park was built on. You can get a guided tour with just your park ticket and no extra fees. It's not a huge group, so if you want to do it, you got to get there at least 10 minutes before your tour starts because it is pretty popular. But there are multiple times throughout the day to do it, so if the weather's good, then this is a huge plus for Silver Dollar City. And that's really it for both parks. The only other thing worth talking about in one of these videos is park atmosphere, but since both of these parks are run by the same company and both have similar themes, it's pretty much a tie again, so I'll give them both a point. So with that all being said, it comes out to a score of 7-6 for Dollywood, but these parks are really close in quality. They have great theming, some really amazing rides, and unbeatable park atmospheres. But if I had to choose one, I would give it to Dollywood. It has the better rides, the better location, and overall, I think it just feels like a more complete and polished park. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you've been to both of these parks, which one did you prefer? Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.